What if Hollywood's brightest stars weren't shining, but burning out? Behind the red carpet's million-dollar smiles and perfectly scripted lives lies a mess of secrets. Mysterious deaths, buried scandals, and powerful people praying you never look too closely. Hollywood sells us dreams, but today we're peeling back the glitter to reveal the ugly, shocking truth they hoped would stay off camera. Number 1. Loretta Young. Hollywood loved to pretend it was built on romance. But for Loretta Young, romance came with rules, silence, and a lie so big it lasted a lifetime. In 1935, while filming The Call of the Wild, Loretta became pregnant by her co-star Clark Gable, an encounter she would later describe not as love, but as rape. In old Hollywood, this wasn't a tragedy. It was a problem to be managed. The studios had a solution: disappear. Loretta vanished from public view, gave birth in secret, and returned months later with a carefully crafted story. The baby, not hers, just a sweet little orphan she had adopted. Hollywood smiled. The audience applauded. The lie worked. For decades, Loretta played the role perfectly devout Catholic, wholesome, star-loving adoptive mother. Only much later did the truth surface: the child was hers all along. No scandal headlines, no public outrage, just a woman forced to choose reputation over reality. Old Hollywood didn't erase women with violence. It erased them with contracts, silence, and smiles. And somehow they called that a happy ending. Number 2. Jimmy Savile. For decades, Jimmy Savile wasn't just famous, he was untouchable. Tracksuits, cigars, creepy catchphrases, and a smile that somehow convinced an entire nation he was harmless. He hosted children's TV, raised money for hospitals, and was knighted by the Queen. Basically, if trust were currency, Savile was a walking goldmine. And that's exactly how he got away with it. After his death in 2011, the truth came crashing out of the shadows like a horror movie. Reveal no one asked for. Over 450 victims came forward. Children, hospital patients, people as young as 5. Places meant to heal became hunting grounds, all while Savile was praised as a national treasure. Hospitals, TV studios, psychiatric wards, nothing was off limits. And the most chilling part: the rumors were always there. Everyone kind of knew, but no one stopped him. Fame was louder than victims, and Savile hid behind charity work like a bulletproof vest. So yes, he fixed it for a lot of people, just not the ones whose lives he destroyed. If there's a lesson here, it's this: sometimes the scariest monsters don't hide in the dark. They wear medals, smile for cameras, and host kids' shows at 6 p.m. Number 3. Woody Allen. If Hollywood had a masterclass in separating the art from the artist, Woody Allen would be the required reading. Brilliant dialogue, neurotic charm, glasses big enough to hide behind. For decades, audiences laughed while Hollywood looked the other way. Then came 1992. Allen was accused of sexually abusing his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, when she was just 7 years old. What followed wasn't a courtroom thriller. It was a masterclass in influence. No criminal conviction, endless debates, and a public narrative carefully padded with doubt. A judge later ruled Allen's behavior inappropriate and determined Dylan needed protection. Translation: something was very wrong, even if the system refused to say it out loud. And yet, the movies kept coming. Awards, standing ovations, European praise tours. Because apparently, if your scripts are clever enough, accountability becomes optional. Allen refused a polygraph. Multiple witnesses corroborated Dylan's account. Still, Hollywood shrugged, sighed, and asked, "But have you seen his latest film? Here's the uncomfortable punchline. In an industry obsessed with truth on screen, the hardest truth to accept was off camera. Turns out the most disturbing plot twist wasn't in his movies, it was the one everyone chose not to watch. Number 4. Alfred Hitchcock. When you hear the name Alfred Hitchcock, you think suspense, genius, camera angles, and birds that absolutely did not come in peace. What you probably don't think of is stalker behavior control issues and a real-life horror story that never made it to the screen. According to actress Tippi Hedren, Hitchcock didn't just direct her, he obsessed over her. He allegedly controlled who she spoke to, warned male co-stars not to touch her, and glared at anyone who dared acknowledge her existence. Romantic lead forbidden. Independent thought absolutely not. It didn't stop there. Hitchcock reportedly had her handwriting analyzed, sent assistants to monitor her personal life, and even had his driver circle her home. In one particularly chilling moment, he allegedly entered her dressing room and forcibly touched her. Forget method directing. This was power abuse with a director's chair. For years, this side of Hitchcock was quietly edited out of film history. Critics praised the genius, fans applauded the legacy, and the victim told to stay quiet, smile, and hit her mark. The irony is brutal. The master of cinematic fear didn't need jump scares or soundtracks. He was the thriller. Turns out Hitchcock didn't just create suspense, he lived it, and made sure others did too. Number 5. Judy Garland. Hollywood loves a success story. But with Judy Garland, the success came with a prescription bottle. Actually, several. Judy wasn't just a star, she was a product. MGM worked her relentlessly, feeding her a cocktail of amphetamines to keep her awake, barbiturates to knock her out, and adrenaline shots to squeeze just a few more hours of labor out of a teenager. Sleep was optional. Childhood was not included. Executives criticized her weight, her looks, her energy, then drugged her so she could meet impossible standards they invented 5 minutes earlier. And as if chemical dependency wasn't enough, studio head Louis B. Mayer allegedly forced her onto his lap, groped her, and praised her while doing it. Because nothing says family studio like trauma behind closed doors. To the audience, Judy was sunshine and song. Behind the scenes, she was exhausted, addicted, and barely holding herself together, all while being told to smile wider. At just 47 years old, Judy Garland died from a barbiturate overdose. Hollywood mourned, tributes poured in, and somehow the system that broke her walked away untouched. The tragedy isn't that Judy Garland couldn't survive Hollywood. It's that Hollywood survived Judy Garland and kept rolling the cameras anyway. Number 6, Natalie Wood. Hollywood loves a tragic ending, but Natalie Wood never signed up to be part of one. She feared dark water. She couldn't swim, which makes her final story feel less like an accident and more like a question no one wants to answer. In 1981, Natalie boarded a yacht for a weekend getaway with her husband, Robert Wagner co-star Christopher Walken, and the captain. What was meant to be a relaxing trip ended with her body found floating a mile away from the boat. The official ruling: accidental drowning. The details: not so neat. Natalie had bruises on her arms, marks on her face, and witnesses later admitted there had been arguments that night. Wagner himself acknowledged a heated fight. Authorities reopened the case decades later, admitting she could have been assaulted before entering the water, or maybe she slipped. Hollywood's favorite word, maybe. No arrests, no charges. Just endless theories and uncomfortable silence. The irony is cruel. Natalie made a career playing dramatic roles, yet her final act remains unscripted, unresolved, and haunting. In Hollywood, endings are supposed to make sense. But Natalie Wood's story reminds us sometimes the truth sinks faster than the body ever did. Number 7. George Reeves. Hollywood loves superheroes, but it's not great at saving the people who play them. Just ask George Reeves. In the 1950s, Reeves was Superman. Kids adored him, adults recognized him everywhere, and television had officially given him a cape. But behind the scenes, Reeves was struggling typecast, aging out of roles, and quietly unhappy with a career that wouldn't let him be anything but invincible on screen. Then came June 16, 1959. George Reeves was found dead in his bedroom from a gunshot wound. The case was ruled a suicide almost immediately. Case closed, cape folded, roll credits. Except, not everyone bought it. Friends didn't believe he was suicidal. Hollywood insiders whispered about his affair with Toni Mannix, wife of a powerful MGM executive rumored to have mob ties. Toni allegedly confessed involvement to a priest years later, though her Alzheimer's makes that confession impossible to verify. Add missing fingerprints, multiple gunshots, and inconsistent witness statements, and suddenly, this simple suicide starts looking like a bad script rewrite. Here's the cruel irony: the man famous for being bulletproof may have been taken out by Hollywood itself. George Reeves couldn't escape Superman. And Superman, it seems, couldn't save George Reeves. In Hollywood, even heroes don't always get a happy ending. Sometimes they just get a cover story. Number 8. Roscoe Arbuckle. Before Hollywood perfected the art of covering things up, it accidentally perfected the art of destroying a man's life. Meet Roscoe Arbuckle. Better known as Fatty Arbuckle, one of the biggest movie stars of the silent film era, adored for slapstick comedy and a smile audiences trusted. Then came One Hotel Room in 1921. After a party, actress Virginia Rappe fell violently ill and later died. Almost immediately, fingers pointed at Arbuckle. Newspapers didn't wait for facts, they printed guilt in bold headlines. He was accused of sexually assaulting Rappe and causing fatal injuries. The public wanted blood, and Hollywood offered him up on a silver platter. Here's the part that rarely gets mentioned: medical exams found no evidence of assault. Arbuckle's lawyers proved Rappe had a chronic medical condition. After 3 trials, he was fully acquitted, with jurors even issuing a formal apology. But by then, it didn't matter. His career was over. Studios blacklisted him. His name became toxic. The man who made millions laugh became a cautionary tale whispered behind closed doors. The dark joke. Arbuckle was innocent, but innocence doesn't sell newspapers. Scandal does. Hollywood didn't need a conviction to end him. It just needed a headline and the crowd's appetite for outrage. Number 9. George Raft. In classic Hollywood, actors played gangsters. George Raft didn't bother pretending. On screen, he was the sharp-suited tough guy flipping coins, firing Tommy guns, and staring down enemies like it was just another Tuesday. Off-screen, let's just say casting directors didn't have to stretch their imagination. Raft openly admitted he never considered himself much of an actor. He just wanted to be himself. Hollywood politely asked him to keep that part quiet. Why? Because George Raft's real-life friendships read like a police blotter. He ran with mobsters, partied with infamous figures like Bugsy Siegel, and had connections so obvious that even Hollywood's PR machine struggled to airbrush them out. During the filming of Scarface in 1932, actual gangsters reportedly showed up on set, including Al Capone himself, who allegedly gave tips on how to properly fire a Tommy gun. Method acting, but make it felony adjacent. Studios tried to sell Raft as a movie star, not a mob associate. But the mob didn't care about image control. They showed up anyway. The irony is almost poetic. Hollywood feared scandal, yet relied on it to look authentic. George Raft wasn't typecast because he looked like a gangster. He was typecast because, well, he already was one. In an industry built on illusion, Raft proved one thing. Sometimes the most dangerous role is just being yourself. Number 10. Marilyn Monroe. If Hollywood were a religion, Marilyn Monroe would be its patron saint, blonde, beautiful, and sacrificed far too young. Born Norma Jean Mortensen, she was reinvented into a living fantasy, breathy voice, perfect curves, and a smile that could sell movie tickets and toothpaste at the same time. The world saw sex appeal. Hollywood saw a product. And very few people bothered to see the woman underneath. Marilyn was married 3 times, divorced 3 times, and somehow still blamed for every relationship that failed. After her last divorce, her life quietly spiraled. She was paraded through elite Hollywood parties like a party favor for powerful men, rumored to have relationships with icons like Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra. And then there was that affair with President John F. Kennedy. Yes, the most powerful man in the world, while cameras conveniently looked away. 3 months later, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her home. Officially, an overdose. Unofficially, pick your conspiracy. Missing phone records, delayed emergency calls, powerful names hovering uncomfortably close to the narrative. Hollywood quickly sealed the story, labeled it tragic but tidy, and moved on. The cruel joke. Marilyn spent her entire career pretending to be happy for the camera. The one time she needed protection, Hollywood gave her silence instead. They sold her image forever, but buried the truth with her. Number 11. Charlie Chaplin. If old Hollywood had a "you had to be there" moment, this one came with a yacht, a newspaper tycoon, and a body that was never supposed to make headlines. At the center of it all, Charlie Chaplin, though, ironically, he may not have been the real target. Media mogul William Randolph Hearst believed Chaplin was having an affair with his mistress actress, Marion Davies. Instead of a calm conversation like a normal human being, Hearst did what powerful men do best. He invited everyone onto his yacht. Because nothing says, "let's clear the air" like guns and alcohol on open water. Also on board was film producer Thomas Ince, who was reportedly looking for investors. What he found instead was a fatal gunshot wound. The theory goes that Hearst aimed at Chaplin and missed. Ince took the bullet. Here's the magic trick: Hearst owned the newspapers. So the story vanished. Reports were buried. Details softened. Hollywood closed ranks. Officially, Ince died of natural causes. Because apparently yachts just do that sometimes. Chaplin walked away. Hearst kept publishing. And a man died without justice, edited out like a bad scene. The punchline is painfully Hollywood. The greatest cover-up didn't happen on screen, it happened in the headlines you never got to read. Number 12. Jeffrey Tambor. For nearly 4 decades, Jeffrey Tambor played some of television's most unforgettable characters. Awkward, arrogant, complicated men who made audiences laugh while quietly making them uncomfortable. Turns out, that part wasn't much of a stretch. At the peak of his career, Tambor landed Transparent, a critically acclaimed show that earned him awards, praise, and a full-blown career renaissance. Hollywood loves a comeback story. Unfortunately, this one came with receipts. Slowly, women began coming forward. Different sets, different years, same story. Sexual comments, intimidation, crossing lines like they were mere suggestions. One accuser claimed Tambor had watched her sleep. Another, his former assistant on Transparent, finally broke her silence and detailed behavior so disturbing the show's creators had no choice but to act. Tambor denied everything, then denied it again, then apologized. Kind of. The statements were vague, carefully worded, and heavy on misunderstandings. Hollywood tried to squint past it, but this time the noise was too loud. He was fired from Transparent. His reputation collapsed almost overnight. The comeback was officially canceled. Here's the dark irony: Tambor spent years playing characters who abused power and social norms, and somehow no one noticed the pattern. In Hollywood, the line between acting and reality is thin. For Jeffrey Tambor, it finally disappeared. Number 13. Louis C.K. For years, Louis C.K. built a career on brutal honesty. He joked about shame, regret, and being a terrible human being, which in hindsight feels less like comedy and more like foreshadowing. Rumors had been floating for years. Quiet whispers in comedy clubs. Awkward warnings passed between women like secret handshakes. Louis denied everything. Friends defended him. Fans laughed it off. Because hey, if it's not on record, it didn't happen. Right. Then came the New York Times. In 2017, multiple women went on record describing a disturbingly similar pattern: Louis exposing himself, masturbating in front of them, and using his power to corner careers that were just getting started. The punchline: consent was technically asked for, but power made no feel impossible. Once the article dropped, the dam broke. Suddenly, everyone knew. Everyone had heard something. Everyone stayed quiet anyway. Louis issued a statement admitting it all. No jokes, no punchlines, just consequences. Tours canceled, shows pulled, projects erased overnight. The dark comedy here is almost too perfect. A man famous for oversharing somehow convinced an entire industry to look away. Louis C.K. didn't get canceled. He got exposed, and Hollywood realized that honesty without accountability is just another act. Number 14. Matt Lauer. If Hollywood had a Nice Guy award, Matt Lauer would have won it every morning at 7 a.m. For years, he was the smiling face of America's breakfast TV, charming, calm, trustworthy. The kind of man you'd invite into your living room with coffee and pancakes. And apparently, Hollywood did exactly that, without reading the fine print. In 2017, everything exploded. Multiple women came forward accusing Lauer of severe workplace harassment. Not rumors, not misunderstandings, patterns, power, control. One allegation was so bizarre it sounded like a villain origin story. Lauer allegedly had a hidden button under his desk that could lock his office door from the inside. Because when you're a TV host, why not also build a supervillain lair? NBC fired him overnight. Fans were stunned. Colleagues issued shocked statements, and Lauer released an apology so carefully worded, it felt like it had been edited by 10 lawyers and a crisis management team. The irony was brutal. The man who reported other people's scandals for a living became one. Matt Lauer didn't just fall from grace, he proved that in Hollywood, the biggest shock isn't what people do on camera. It's what they think no one will ever see. Number 15. Kevin Spacey. For years, Kevin Spacey played powerful men better than anyone else. Presidents, moguls, manipulators. Turns out he wasn't acting as much as we thought. In 2017, actor Anthony Rapp accused Spacey of making sexual advances toward him when he was just 14 years old. Spacey's response, a masterclass in how not to apologize. Instead of addressing the accusation head-on, he chose that moment to come out as gay, as if sexual orientation were a plot twist that erased accountability. The LGBTQ+ community immediately said, "Absolutely not." Then the floodgates opened. More than a dozen men came forward, with eerily similar stories: abuse of power, unwanted advances, careers quietly threatened into silence. The image collapsed overnight. Netflix fired him from House of Cards. His scenes were digitally erased from all the money in the world, like he'd never existed. Hollywood hit delete. But Spacey wasn't done performing. He resurfaced with bizarre, cryptic YouTube videos, speaking in character, half apology, half threat, as if real-life consequences were just another role he could monologue his way out of. The irony is almost poetic. A man famous for playing untouchable elites discovered what it feels like to actually be untouchable by the industry. Kevin Spacey didn't lose his career because of bad acting. He lost it because the audience finally stopped applauding. Number 16. Harvey Weinstein. Hollywood loves fairy tales, especially the kind where the monster wears a tuxedo. Meet Harvey Weinstein. The man who turned Oscar buzz into a bargaining chip and fear into an industry standard. Weinstein didn't just produce movies, he produced careers. With Miramax and later the Weinstein Company, he held the keys to fame awards and red carpets. And behind closed hotel doors, he allegedly ran something far darker, a system built on intimidation, silence, and non-disclosure agreements thicker than most screenplays. For years, rumors followed him like bad reviews everyone pretended not to read. Actresses whispered warnings. Assistants knew which hotel suites to avoid. Lawyers were on speed dial. And somehow the machine kept running. Then, in 2017, the story broke, and it didn't trickle out. It exploded. More than 80 women came forward with allegations of sexual assault, harassment, and coercion. Lawsuits described an organized effort to cover it all up, involving companies, fixers, and settlements designed to make the problem disappear. Hollywood reacted with shock. Performative shock. The same industry that enabled him suddenly acted like this was brand new information. The irony is vicious. Harvey Weinstein didn't just greenlight stories about powerful villains. He was one, and thought the credits would never roll. In the end, Weinstein wasn't undone by gossip or scandal. He was undone when the silence finally ran out. Number 17. Bill Cosby. For decades, Bill Cosby was America's dad. Sweaters, dad jokes, life lessons before bedtime. He wasn't just trusted, he was practically installed in living rooms across the country, which makes what came next feel less like a scandal and more like a betrayal speedrun. Behind the wholesome image was a pattern that stretched back decades. Women began coming forward one by one, accusing Cosby of drugging and sexually assaulting them. The stories were eerily similar, too similar to ignore. For years, they were dismissed, mocked, or buried under Cosby's reputation and legal muscle. Then the dam broke. In 2018, Cosby was convicted of drugging and assaulting Andrea Constand. More than 60 women had accused him by that point. 60. That's not a coincidence, that's a system failing repeatedly and loudly. The dark irony: Cosby built a career lecturing America about morality. At 80 years old, he was sentenced to prison. The man once seen as the symbol of family values became one of the most infamous figures of the #MeToo era. Hollywood claimed shock, again. But the truth is simpler and uglier. Cosby didn't hide in the shadows. He hid in plain sight, protected by fame's silence and the belief that nice guys don't do things like that. Turns out the scariest bedtime stories were the ones we trusted the most. Number 18. Chris Brown. If chaos had a soundtrack, Chris Brown would already be on the remix. By 2016, the headlines had slowed down just enough for people to pretend Chris Brown's past was old news. Then came the kind of story that sounds fake until you realize it absolutely wasn't. One night in Los Angeles, police were called after a woman accused Brown of pointing a gun at her during an argument. According to reports, she tried to leave. Brown allegedly offered her a deal she could have her belongings back if she signed a non-disclosure agreement and forgot everything. Bold strategy. She refused and ran. Brown followed her in his car. She hid in a neighbor's yard, because nothing screams innocent misunderstanding like a high-speed celebrity chase. When police arrived, Brown refused to let them into his house without a warrant. So LAPD did what any normal response would be. They surrounded the mansion, set up a perimeter, and brought out helicopters. Yes, helicopters. It turned into a full-blown standoff like Cops Celebrity Edition. Eventually, Brown was arrested, and then the story quietly faded away. No career-ending fallout, no lasting outrage, just another chapter filed under Chris Brown. Incidents, a category apparently too long for anyone to finish reading. The dark joke is simple. In any other life, this would be the headline that defines you forever. In Hollywood, it's just Tuesday. Chris Brown didn't escape controversy. Controversy just learned how to coexist with fame.